Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Monday night. It is time for Revolutionary Change. I'm Jen Perelman.
I'm Peter Hager, and I figured I would get to the right side as quickly as possible.
Every time. You do it every time.
Well, it's supposed to be a good luck charm, right?
I guess.
I think so.
No, I need to be on the left. I'm on the left.
Well, I'm definitely not. Well, I don't know what I am. I just know
I
that
know.
Have to be.
You're more on the left, I think, than you think, but that's okay.
You're more left than me. That's for sure.
I'm more left than most.
Yeah, that's true too. So we are on a heater again. We have passed 90,000 subscribers. We are at almost at 90,500. Like I said, this is a very magic carpet ride, and we hope it continues. We thank you all if you're watching the viral clip that we dropped earlier this afternoon. Hopefully you'll stick around for a live stream.
What happened today, by the way? Like, I've been honestly driving for 8 hours. So I really have not seen much today. So but the country, I've seen a chunk of the country, but not in terms of
the country. Don't you want?
Yeah. What was the clip that we put up?
So the clip that I put up of Candace Owens talking about Erica Kirk and the fact that the private plane that somehow was able to fly out of the private airport when all flights were grounded following trial. Again, I
was confused by that because I saw it and I saw her explaining how there's planes that follow or wherever Erica Kirk is. Like, there's planes that follow her. But I thought she wasn't in the vicinity.
That's what they're saying. And it is possible that she had. I have maintained that I'm not going to say that she's a useful idiot, but what I will say is that if there is anybody at this point who thinks that this was not a coup d'etat to assassinate a very influential politico, then you probably still believe Lee Harvey Oswald assassinated JFK, and he acted alone too, and he did it with 3 shots. So if that's the world you want to live in, and that's fine. We've debated time and again about whether or not, people would take the blue pill or the red pill if it was offered to them. Now, the perception is that, I would totally take the red pill. And you are of the mind that, no, most people would take the blue pill.
I know they do. I know they would.
I know one person in my immediate family who 1,000% would take the blue pill, no questions asked.
I think all but maybe one person in your immediate family would take the blue pill.
Yeah, probably.
I think, most people, I mean, this is why my herd has been thinned significantly over the past 10 years in particular.
Yeah,
it's been 10 years. It's been 10 years.
But there's also a lot of people who simply can't accept that. They know what.
Think that's the blue pill. That's how I know that people would rather have the blue pill. That's how I know.
It's not even so much the blue pill. It's just that they know that what they're being told is not true. But at the same time, they know what the consequences will be if they take the red pill.
I don't think they know. I think that they believe that there is truth in what they're hearing, that it's just biased. Right. And that might be so. I mean, that might be so. But I think that they don't want to be inconvenienced by being uncomfortable.
No.
And all of this is very uncomfortable. So most people don't want to be inconvenienced with this because it's uncomfortable.
Well, it's going to get more uncomfortable. That's the thing. And
yes,
as we segue into our first story, and for those of you who are not familiar with BettBeat Media, the 2 professors in the Far East have been knocking at our door, and we're going to have them on. So it'll be an interesting conversation.
You can say it. They're in China.
They're in China. Vagina.
So it always fascinates me when we talk to people today, but they're in tomorrow. I friggin' love that. So I'm excited about that because I'm pretty sure they're in tomorrow today.
Well, speaking of tomorrow, but more specifically speaking of the night before Thanksgiving, like the night before Christmas, under your tree, you'll have a nice present. We have been trying diligently to get a hold of Phil Turney, one of the last surviving members of the USS Liberty. He is going to join us on Wednesday. So this is a conversation we've really been looking forward to.
Yes.
That will be a lot of fun. I have no doubt.
I find that it must be so infuriating. Yeah. Like to be him or people that are in his position, other, crew people or fellow sailors in his position, like that you watched your friends get murdered. And not only don't people believe you, but then it gets covered up like it never happened. And then they gaslight you for the next 50 years of your life.
Well, there's also the element. No, actually, you're wrong. It's almost 60 years now.
Okay.
So yeah, but the thing you have to remember, which I think is probably and this is something I'm going to mention to him. I'm like, every time one of your fellow crew members passes away and you still don't have justice, I can imagine how much that eats at you, probably more than anything else.
Oh, and people tell you what you're saying didn't happen.
Right.
Oh, that's infuriating. I find, look, the past couple of years has been infuriating dealing with people downplaying what's happening. So,
well, I look forward to his commentary on LBJ. I'm sure he's got a lot to say about it.
I'm sure.
So with that said, you and I have obviously talked at length with our audience about the fact that social media is not what you think it is. It never was. And much like technology, which I've often said is our greatest asset and our greatest detriment at the same time, it's great that we can communicate with professors in China or frankly, a war hero in Colorado. That is what technology affords us. But at the same time, it's very detrimental on our growth. It creates more of a robotic-like populace, which is obvious.
We're a mess.
And then you see what it does on social media with this perception that everybody has these amazing followings, and how did they get them? Is it even real, or is it astroturfed, or are they just bots? Well, if there's one thing we learned from, sorry, but always have to call out the Krasenstein brothers, this is astroturfing, this is bot farming, this is everything that you can think of. Only now it's much more obvious because so many of these accounts that people believed were bigger than they actually were, more influential than they actually were, or even real versus being manufactured.
We can't believe any of it. I've been saying, look, I think the entire K-Hive was manufactured. I think Pete Buttigieg was manufactured. Like, I don't think a lot of these support systems that we've been seeing, I don't think a lot of it's real.
Well, again, Buttigieg is much more of an obvious example because at least with Kamala, she was somebody who was the DA. She was a senator. She did become the vice president. Buttigieg was a mayor of a small town, plucked out of obscurity, then somehow got pumped $25 million up his bottom and became, and I'm talking about $25 million specifically for the state of Iowa in 2020.
Yeah.
So you can't convince me that there is, and on top of everything else, he's not that impressive.
No, but you're making it be like somehow that's a contrast between them. I would suggest it's pretty much the same thing. These are like the Spice Girls of politics. These are people that are groomed to be in a certain position to help the Democratic Party raise a certain amount of money, and they project a certain image that appeals to those donors.
Yes.
And they have the DEI that they need to impress the people that think that that's what makes them all woke.
Well,
so, I mean, there's that, but no, she is very much a fiction. I still can't for the life of me fathom how she got to be the attorney general in California, and she can't seem to think off the cuff. Like, she can't just have a conversation without it being a word salad. How is that a litigator? So this is someone who I think was very much pushed along the path, if you will.
Yeah, and I would also say that because obviously the central focus here is what we were able to discover, and it should come as no surprise that it's a two-layer story here. It's the fact that Elon decided to implement a new tool, if you will, to X. Not a surprise. And I definitely agree with Citizen Pendejo. Laura Loomer is astroturfed all the way to Saturn. Well, she's astroturfed by the very people that apparently are running the DHS. And I know you have a very strong opinion about Christy the Gnome. Christy the Gnome, let's just call her that. Because
here's the problem with that, okay? I really like gnomes. And it bothers me to no end that like now I affiliate that with gnomes, because gnomes didn't do anything to be affiliated with that piece of shit. Yeah. So it bothers me, but yeah, go on.
I debated who I thought would provide the best context for this particular issue, but more than any other one, we have learned that several of these accounts, for example, there is a huge pro-Israel account called Vivid on X. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. It's got hundreds of thousands of followers and pumps up everything pro-Israel, like Huckabee, who I've pointed out time and again. Only it turns out that this person, Vivid, is not who they say they are. They're not Israel. They're not here. They are actually some Indian guy in Bangladesh. So, shocker. Now, for whatever reason, this tool was implemented, and all of a sudden, all of these accounts started getting picked off left and right. Who exactly do they belong to? Who exactly are they representing? Well, guess what? They're not representing the United States. So,
that was a very lengthy introduction, my friend. Can we have some general context?
Hunter Howell is going to provide it for us. Here we go.
Okay.
Say will probably guarantee me an early grave, but fuck it. You need to know the truth. My name is Hunter Howell. I would never harm myself. And I have a document right here that proves the United States government committed treason against the American people. This document is no longer on the internet. It's since been scrubbed. So it'd be a shame if you shared this with as many people as possible to get the truth out there, because it's a very high chance they take this video down as well.
We're going to try.
Here's what this says, okay? It's a screenshot of the Department of Homeland Security's X account. There was a new feature that came out recently that talked about where it showed in the world where accounts were stationed in. So the USA Department of Homeland Security, their account is based in Tel Aviv. I'm not being satirical. I'm not fucking joking. Our Homeland Security account is based in Israel. When people were questioning them about it, they responded with a meme of the president looking surprised. And for those of you saying it's fake, there's another document here that I'll read to you, because someone asked AI to analyze what was going on the internet, and it's confirmed. Yes, the DHS account briefly displayed location as based in Israel during a new feature rollout, possibly due to a glitch or IP data. Oh. That's AI's explanation of it all. Just possibly a glitch.
Just a glitch. That's quite a convenient glitch. I mean, a glitch in all things, but that's what it shows. No.
And then immediately they pull the entire feature down.
Right.
They stop. They remove the bug and say, okay. that's not going to work.
Yeah, so we don't want people to know where we're actually based out of. But what does this prove, Peter? What does this prove? What I have been saying all along.
We are Israel, and Israel is us.
They are not a separate entity. So there's no breaking ties with them. They are us. We are them. Case in point.
Well, the only way that we break ties with Israel is through revolution. Like,
right, but it's not breaking ties with Israel. What it's doing is the Zionist state will cease to exist.
That
will happen along with the United States no longer being the global hegemon.
That's true. That's happening no matter what. That's true, but that's happening no matter what. It's to anybody who is understanding what we're living through right now is a revolutionary change. This is happening whether you want it to or not. And we're going to get, we rarely ever go back into the well on a particular Zio scum, but Sara Hurwitz made it her mission in life to make it so this weekend. So she will be dealt with again later on. As some of our friends on other channels have suggested, she is the best and worst spokesperson for the Zio cause.
Oh, I think she's great.
Oh, yeah. No, I have no complaints. What this is showing us, though, more than anything else, I remember how I felt back in the summer of 2015 when the senator from Vermont was talking about certain things that I was not understanding, I think the light bulb gets turned on and you start thinking, oh, it really is an oligarchic billionaire class that is running this country. Now, it obviously took time to realize how much the Israel connection actually played a substantial role, going all the way back to Jack's assassination. But it is painfully obvious now, whether it's by accident or intentional, because let's be honest, there are people that work in the State Department that see what's happening and they want to expose this for the world to see.
So this is very interesting. But so now they not only took this down, but somebody tapped Elon on the shoulder and was like, yeah, we don't want people knowing where everybody is based out of. We don't want that.
But you've already let the cat out of the bag. Yeah, but you've already let the cat out of the bag.
Well, with this one, with this particular account, so you think it would be better if more accounts got exposed for being wherever they are?
Well, that's why people screenshot, they document it. That's why Mr. Howell here says, I am not suicidal.
Exactly.
It's amazing. You know, I think in some respects, I mean, especially if and when we cross that 100,000 mark and we are officially an actual player in the game, since Google will have to acknowledge our existence with a plaque.
Let's hope we can make it that far before they cut us off, you know?
In more ways than one, yes. I am not suicidal. I actually intend to live a long life. Jen, not so much, but you're not suicidal.
But
we'll finish it up.
And you can't see it anymore. My call to action, file tax exempt. Share this video with hundreds of people, not just 5 of your friends, with everyone you know. You need to know this document right here could, quite literally what I'm saying, could be the end of me. But you need to know that our government is committing treason and that the way to fight back peacefully is by filing tax exempt. My name is Hunter Howell. I'm sending you my love. Please protect me by 3 buttons over here.
So on the one hand, it's infuriating, but technically, you know, like on paper, it appears like it's treason, but it really isn't, right? Because they are us. They are an appendage of American empire, of U.S.
Well,
empire.
but they shouldn't be.
Well, correct. Like that's the big sort of like aha moment. But to say it's treason when we're with them, it just isn't, because technically they only exist because of us. So they are an appendage of us. So
yeah, no, we definitely created them. And as I said, we have not had the opportunity to have anyone on our channel that can really speak to what the 6-Day War was about, what 1967 really represented. I mean, obviously 1948.
It was expansion. It was an expansion of the 48 border.
Yeah. If you go back and you look at the original border in 1948 compared to what it looked like in 1967, that's where the real change happened. It became forget it. They took an inch, and then they took a mile, and then they took the whole thing. And that's basically where we're at. And in this case, propaganda can only work for so long. And this is exactly why I maintain that if Kamala was president, they would be doing a much better job of hiding this right now. I just don't think Trump cares enough. Trump has already done what he set out to do, to make himself and his family even richer, although in your mind, he actually became rich for the first time by becoming the president, which may be true. All I know is that if there's an account that you see on social media that doesn't have a name, but just a handle, doesn't have a photo, but just an image, trust me when I tell you, especially if it's a big account, it's not real.
It's not real. Nope.
Now,
even with a picture, that's the thing now. Even with a picture, like I am at a stage with the AI and the bots and all the nonsense stuff that if I don't know that a person actually exists in real life, then I'm not even giving avatar the benefit of the doubt of being real. Now, even if I know a person exists in real life, I'm still not convinced that whatever image I'm watching is that person or a video of that person that hasn't been like altered. We're in a whole different universe, but I do not believe people are real unless I know them or know people who know them in person.
I agree with what Colette is suggesting, and I've always maintained that the biggest reason why Israel is able to get away with what they get away with is because of the threat of assassination, the threat of nuclear annihilation, and everything in between. That's the only logical explanation. I don't think anybody would argue that point.
No, Travers, I know you're real. I know you're real.
Are we sure?
I know you're real.
Are we sure?
Well, yes, because, yeah, his sense of humor is too dry-witted, too totally, I don't know, totally Irishman type thing to be a bot.
You just can't accept if he's not a Scotsman or if he's an
I can't
Irish.
accept that he's not a Scotsman. He's an Irishman living in Scotland. That's a poser.
Scots-Irish. It's a real thing. Bring this up because we have seen how far this current incarnation of the Zio state is willing to go. And that brings us, of course, to I Heart Huckabee. Not so much.
Oh. Now this is like traitorous shit we're talking about now. Like now we're getting into the realm of treason.
I want to set the table here with a clip that I think is going to explain just how absolutely insane these Christian Zionist scumbags really are. Now, Huckabee does it with a smile and a grin, and maybe he is a true believer. I don't give a shit if he is or not. If you want to talk about where I am extremely libertarian, it is when it comes to our constitutional rights. I believe in the separation of church and state, full stop. I don't give a rat's ass what you believe. This is not a Christian nation. It may be a Christian majority nation, but there is a separation of the church from the state. It's written in our most important document. Now, of course, somebody like Mike Huckabee doesn't believe that. And putting him in a position of power, even if it is the ambassador to Israel, it's still a pretty significant position. So as we know, he met with a treasonous criminal. There is really no other way to describe this other than the fact that you now have this man who decided to go to Tel Aviv and meet with this person who was a spy against the United States. But I want to set this up where people can understand the psychotic mindset of Mike Huckabee.
I ask all the time because I'm a Christian, and they say, well, why are you so supportive of the Jewish people? I said, you can be Jewish, you don't have to have anything to do with Christians, but you can't be a Christian and not understand that your entire faith is built on the foundation of Judaism. So for Christians, we look at this as an obligation, a moral debt that we must repay. And therefore, I don't understand anyone who says, I'm a Christian, but I don't really want to support the Jews. Well,
but yet you understand Christians that have a problem with Muslims, and yet Muslims are the next incarnation of that, in that they respect and incorporate the Jewish Bible and the Christian Bible. Like Jesus is mentioned more in the Quran than Muhammad. So it's just ridiculous how ignorant this person is. And and how brainwashed. I think he legitimately believes in the mythology.
I think he is a true believer like Pence was. I think that there probably is some truth to that. But that also lends to the notion that anyone who is a true believer does not belong in government. I don't mind if you're religious, but there's something entirely different when you believe that your religion supersedes our laws and our traditions. And that is something that Mike Huckabee believes.
Well, he thinks it's allowed to, he thinks that religion should be allowed to dictate geopolitics in general. And that's absurd. That's like your little mythical book is not law, right? Like it's so absurd that we're dealing with grownups in a grown-up world that believe in such fairy tales and want to govern the world accordingly. It's so absurd.
Well, that's the whole point. This is exactly why I believe in the separation of church and state. And I'm not an atheist. I'm not. But I also know that you can't force your beliefs on other people. We had the Crusades, and you lost.
Yep.
That's why they hate Muslims as much as they do. Because the Muslims won the Crusades. You know, that's a little inconvenient truth of history that they like to forget or don't like to talk about. So, with that said, he has a little.
They don't even know their own religion well. And guys, we're working on getting John Fugelsang back on. He's been a guest on before, but he has a new book out called Separation of Church and Hate. And he is someone that would be so perfect to address the lunacy of these supposed quote unquote Christians, because there's nothing Christ-like about these people.
No.
How can you do that? But it is not the view of those of us who are what I would call biblical believers that accept that what the scripture says about the Jewish people. In Genesis 12, those who bless Israel will be blessed. Those who curse Israel will be cursed. It gets pretty simple. When I say there's a miracle.
That is a fucking lie, and I am getting so sick and tired of these people misconstruing what the Holy Bible actually says. And make no mistake, the Bible that Huckabee is quoting is a blasphemous reinterpretation of the scripture called the Schofield Bible. And what was the purpose of the Schofield Bible? It was the Zionist Bible that was written at the turn of the 20th century. You know, the amazing thing about religion is that you would think the more they modernize themselves, you know, kind of like the Protestants and then the Calvinists and then ultimately the Mormons, and then we get to the Scientologists. You know what they all have in common? The more modern they get, the more insane they get. You would think that there would be some semblance of, oh, maybe we should be a little bit more modern in our views about what took place 2,000, 5,000, 10,000 years ago. No, let's get more insane. That's what they're doing. And Huckabee is a prime example of that.
Yeah. I mean, but that's why it's important for us to talk to people that are truly people that have like what we call Christ consciousness, right? People that are true Christians that live that way and practice their life in that way. These people are not that. These are capitalists. These are capitalist Zionists. It's a very different kind of thing. And it's interesting because even Tucker Carlson gets this. Even Tucker Carlson gets that what Huckabee is talking about, the Bible he's quoting, all of that rhetoric is complete bullshit and has absolutely nothing to do with being a Christian or believing in teachings of Christ, right? So, you know, and it never ceases to amaze me that it often takes an atheist to explain what the Christ-like consciousness is. Because atheists do it without having fear of getting in trouble. They just do it because we just do it.
Yes, I agree. And why do we bring this up? Why is this so significant? Here's why. American who spied for Israel says he met Ambassador Mike Huckabee to thank him for his support. Jonathan Pollard, an ex-U.S. intelligence analyst, spent 30 years in prison on espionage charges after being found to have passed documents to Israel. And of course, he looks like this.
Well, that's irrelevant. And how, when was this happened? 30 years ago?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not familiar with his like particular case. I know who he is and like that he was released, but I don't really know the background of, you know, his conviction.
Convicted Israeli spy Jonathan Pollard downplayed the controversy around his private meeting with U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee. Just the fact that of all the people you are going to Tel Aviv to meet with, you're meeting with a person who is a convicted, treasonous bastard, a person who truly was working against the interests of this country. You, by proxy, Mike Huckabee, are a traitor to the United States, because I have no doubt that whatever you were meeting Mr. Pollard about was not to have tea and crumpets. No chance. It was much more sinister than that. Which is why when Mr. Pollard was released, who was the person who greeted him at the tarmac when he arrived back in Tel Aviv? Who, Jen? Who do you think would have been the first person to meet him on the tarmac when he arrived? I can't hear you.
Milikowski.
Correct. Netanyahu Milikowski.
Netanyahu.
The main point of the meeting at the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem, excuse me, was to thank the ambassador for his efforts on my behalf during my incarceration. So what you're saying is that Huckabee went to great lengths to get you out of prison.
Right. Well, this is another great example. This is the other side of when I'm always saying one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. So this man is a hero to Huckabee. So it's one man's traitor is another man's hero.
Pollard, a former American intelligence analyst, spent 30 years in prison on espionage charges after being found to have passed critical security documents to Israeli intelligence in the 1980s. Israel made Pollard a citizen during his lengthy prison term. And he moved there in 2020, 5 years after his release on probation. During Pollard's detention, Huckabee was among several pro-Israeli politicians who advocated for his release, arguing that the sentence was too severe for someone who had been spying for an ally. He should have been hung. He should have been hung in the gallows. That's what should have happened.
Hanged, but yes.
He didn't hang, but should have hung.
Hanged.
Hung.
No.
Pollard described his meeting as more of a social call and insisted the two didn't discuss politics or Gaza. Scout's honor, I swear to you.
Right. Huckabee has just basically told us it's like his primary mission in life is to abide by what he believes the Bible requires him to do. And that is fulfill the prophecy of Judea and Samaria. I mean, like that's his whole thing. That's why he's in this job. But yet that's not what they spoke about.
Well, this is the whole point about corporate money in politics. When Miriam Adelson gives the Donald $100 million, among other high-profile Zionazi billionaires, you all have to understand, if you don't already, that comes with conditions. And one of those conditions was putting Mike Huckabee in a position of authority.
Absolutely.
Excuse me. But the meeting comes amid a growing list of episodes in which the ambassador, a fierce champion of Israel, has appeared to deviate from official White House policy as the Trump administration deepens its involvement in Middle East diplomacy and peacekeeping. The New York Times first revealed the meeting Thursday. In a statement, spokesperson for the U.S. Embassy in Jerusalem said the article is filled with inaccuracies and said Huckabee has meetings each day with numerous people. And as a matter of general policy, we don't comment as to the content of conversations. If it was so important that these two communicated, or that he was a friend and wanted to send him good wishes, they could have just done a phone call, couldn't they? But no.
Well, it's just absurd to think that that's the case. This is just silly. This is silly.
The embassy offered no further information and declined to comment from the ambassador himself. The White House was not aware of that meeting, but the president stands by our ambassador. Of course he does. Pollard said the meeting was a simple story that got far more complicated than it deserved. Isn't that always the case? Just like it's a little bit of genocide, not that much. Hey, we didn't kill 600,000 Palestinians. We only killed 137,000. So you can't be mad at us. That's how they treat it.
It doesn't matter. Honestly, I'm amazed that people take this. But again, this is NBC News, so can only expect so much.
He told NBC News that he had arranged the visit simply by phoning up the ambassador's office. Oh, is that all it took? Oh, that's pretty simple. He has nothing to hide, and I had nothing to hide. Bullshit. adding that it was an intense personal visit to thank him for his work while he was incarcerated. I can't believe I'm reading this.
You could have just sent a fruit basket.
Yeah. Sent him an apple pie for Thanksgiving. Why do you have to meet him? What is so significant? Again, there is no doubt in my mind that they're meeting because he's passing trade secrets.
Well, right. So we're supposed to believe that somebody who spent 30 years incarcerated for being a spy isn't still a spy? That makes no sense whatsoever. That's so silly.
Yeah. If you're in the CIA, you're a spy. Once in the CIA, always in the CIA.
Always.
And once a spy, always a spy. Period.
Always compromised, never trustworthy. When
you get to that level of clandestine operations, it never goes away. It's what you were put on this earth to do, apparently. And so, but there were questions across the political spectrum for Huckabee over his decision to meet the notorious spy whose long imprisonment drove a wedge between the U.S. and Israel. Oh, some wedge they drove, let me tell you. Representative Joaquin Castro, who somebody on this podcast knows pretty well.
I wouldn't say I know him pretty well. I knew him as a clerk at Aiken Gump when I was in Texas.
Would Congressman Castro remember you if he saw you?
I don't know. He would probably recognize the name, my maiden name, just from when we were law clerks. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, he remembers you on social media. That in much counts, I suppose.
Well, he also now remembers me as somebody who ran against Debbie Wasserman Schultz.
And I'm sure he would privately say, thank you very much.
Maybe. I always got along well with Castro brothers. They're nice guys. I never had a,
Representative Castro on X said that Huckabee should not have met with the convicted traitor, while former Fox News host Tucker Carlson said Huckabee's conduct was shocking behavior from a U.S. ambassador.
But is it really?
Is it really shocking?
Is it really shocking behavior from a U.S. ambassador when we have a president who just on television admitted that he doesn't care about due process regarding all the boats they're blowing up and Venezuela and the fishermen, and literally said, no, we're just going to kill him. We're just going to kill him. So why is anything surprising to anyone anymore? Like, this is it. We are in the Wild West, folks. Nothing is surprising anymore.
But this isn't the first time that Huckabee, a two-time presidential candidate, former governor of Arkansas, keep in mind, Huckabee did win the Iowa caucus back in 2008. And self-described Christian Zionist, that's blasphemy, has ruffled feathers on policy, of course. The ambassador told Israeli media in early September that the U.S. would not stop Israel from annexing the occupied West Bank. The White House and several senior administration officials have since made it clear that the U.S. would oppose such a move. Earlier this year, he told Bloomberg that the U.S. was no longer pursuing the goal of Palestinian statehood, not like they ever were, which has long stood as a central feature of American diplomacy in the Middle East. A U.S.-backed plan for Gaza approved by the UN earlier this month reinstated support for a future credible pathway to Palestinian self-determination statehood. We'll be talking about that at the top of the hour, guests. Huckabee has regularly used the religiously loaded term Judea and Samaria to refer to the West Bank, the most Palestinian enclave that Israel has occupied since 1967. In 2008, he said that there is no such thing as a Palestinian. Of course he did. And that Palestinian nationhood is just a political tool to try and force land away from Israel. Man, he's really a dangerous fuck. Like, he really is. Bad guy.
Like Huckabee?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's the evangelical Christian on the inside. He's the evangelical Christian that is the liaison to the Zio state. So yeah, he's a problem.
In an interview with NBC News on Sunday before news of the Pollard meeting broke, he downplayed talk of a rift with the White House and struck a decidedly more obedient tone. I don't get to make the policy. I simply carry it out as the ambassador. Now, what Mr. Huckabee is not telling you is that the policy that he is following is not the policy of the President of the United States. He's following the policy of the Zio state. That's what he's following.
But wouldn't that also be the policy of the president because the president is completely compromised by the Zio state. So really, I would suggest that their mission is one and the same. He's with the Zio state. He just personally doesn't really give that much of a shit because he just doesn't care about anything but himself because he's a like complete toxic narcissist. But he's with the Zio state. And I also think he gets really shitty intel. So he's acting based on what he hears. And I think he definitely is in an information silo that is probably pretty inaccurate.
I definitely agree. And I think that speaks to what the bigger issue here is that everything is all a means to an end. It's about looting the treasury for all it's worth because a lot of people recognize that the country is going to shit. And once that becomes obvious that we're heading in a revolutionary direction, the oligarchs very often are going to try to get every last nickel and dime out of the system they can before it breaks.
Oh, yeah.
And while I absolutely cannot stand nor even care to acknowledge Scott Galloway, the shit lib that he is, I will at least acknowledge that he did do a decent clip regarding how much profit the Trumps have already made since the Donald returned to the White House.
And is there a breakdown as to where? Because a lot of it is the crypto shit. A lot of it, like, I'd be curious to see like a portfolio breakdown as to where he scammed and skimmed the money. Because, you know, he always was such a wannabe billionaire, having all those bankruptcy filings. Like,
no, I'm really, really rich.
No. And I think he always lied about how much he was worth, which is why he didn't want to submit his tax returns and shit. But, you know, he now he is a billionaire. So he has propelled himself into that status with 2 terms. I mean, I'm just curious what the breakdown is. Like, how much of it is from the crypto crap? How much of it is from insider trading?
Oh, he's going to explain. He's going to explain.
Trump administration will go down in history as the greatest grift in the history of our economy in terms of the amount of money stolen and the size of it over the shortest period. Just some data here. Trump-affiliated entities have made at least $300 million in trading fees. The Trump family's net worth has increased by $3 billion or $1 billion a month since he took office. Just some timeline. The Trump coin launched on a Friday night under cover of dark with all the news about the inauguration. By 3 a.m. on Sunday, it was valued at more than $70 billion. And
do you see what picture they used?
Yeah.
I find yes, but again, a theater setup. That was all a theatrical stunt set up for that kind of imaging. And he got a boost at the time. And it's interesting that that's the photo that they use. No, it isn't. That's what they took it for, was for that purpose.
Now, I don't know if 30 billion of that money was funneled to Israel or not, but it wouldn't surprise me in the least if that were the case.
There were a small number of investors who made large investments on a Friday. Maybe they got a tip or something. They made tens, if not hundreds of millions. And then over the course of the next couple of weeks, about 800,000 smaller investors lost billions. This market manipulation, this what would technically be called insider trading by the SEC, we'll never know because on April 8th, Trump's deputy attorney general ordered the DOJ's crypto fraud investigation arm to disband.
Of course. Well, how do we think people are going to investigate themselves? It's the same thing as police departments doing an investigation into police misconduct. So what difference does that make?
So I have a hypothetical. Remember that Huckabee girl that was popular for like 5 minutes, and then she created. Okay, well, let's just say that it was pretty low brow, to say the least.
I don't know what that even means. A Huckabee, what?
Yeah, trust me, you don't want to know. My point is that this girl had her 15 minutes, and one of the things that she decided to do was create a meme coin. And you had these simps. It's just keep it simple. There are circumstances where if you are investing in a meme coin or a crypto coin, you get what you're asking for. Because to me, the only 2 things that I invest in are things that I can touch: real estate and precious metals. If you can't touch it, it can always be manipulated. Just because somebody tells you what a coin is worth, why would you believe it? It's pump and dump schemes. Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street, they made a movie on this shit.
Yeah.
They had these, where I lived in Jersey, they had these offices that would just spring up. Guys would get their Series 7 and they would do pump and dump penny stock schemes. This shit goes on forever. And now you have it in a digital format, and these guys are getting suckered into this money. So there's a part of me that's like, yeah, Trump's a crook, but you know what? You're also a sucker if you're fucking putting your money into this shit at the same time. You got Grant Cardone and Eric Trump, which one is Eric? Is he Beavis or is he Butthead? I can't remember.
I don't know, because I never watched Beavis and Butthead. I just know what they look like. I don't know who's who. And I don't know that with Trump's kids either. I don't know who's who, and I don't care.
Well, point being is that my point is that when you have Eric Trump and Grant Cardone pitching the latest coin, it's like, yes, should they be thrown into federal prison for 30 years like the Israel spy? Yes, they should, but that's not how it works. If you give your money to these schemes, I honestly don't sympathize. There is a part of me that's like, if you don't know the scam by now, if you can't see it.
Yeah. I mean, but that also, to some extent, it's victim blaming. And yeah, I agree, like, to me, but I'm not an investor in general, so it doesn't apply to me anyway. And for me, people that are in that, if you're in a place where you're able to invest in crypto, you're not the people I'm fighting for anyway. So I don't particularly have any affinity. Like, I don't want people to get screwed over. But that being said, the fact that the president has been profiting at the level that he has is insanity. Like, we are so far gone. This is just, again, he's Biff. He is the most honest liar we've ever had in that office. Because at some point, look, you've got Obama, who came in a community worker, community organizer, and left living in an estate on Martha's Vineyard. Okay. So he didn't get that way from public service. So to some extent, they're all like this, but just Trump is so brazen.
No, I'm just a totally honest operator.
Trump posted on Truth Social, "This is a great time to buy Donald Trump Media at 9:37 a.m. Between 1 and 1:10 p.m., there was a huge increase in bullish zero-day S&P 500 call options. And then just 8 minutes later, Trump announced a 90-day pause on all of his tariffs, and the market soared almost 10%, one of the biggest one-day gains in history. So someone knew what was going on.
Of course they did. One of the best, most memorable lines of Bernie Sanders' run in 2016 was when somebody asked him about Wall Street, and he said the entire model of Wall Street is fraud. It's not real. You got, again, there is really something to be said for the desperation. Yeah, Patrick's right. Remember NFTs? Yeah, me neither. When I saw the NFTs show up, and I'm thinking, there are people that are really giving money to this. And shame on every last one of those motherfuckers out there who knew exactly what the scam was and they were getting paid for it. Like, oh, look, what they did a thing of me. When you're that desperate, it's not even about desperation. When you're that greedy, when you're that vain, fuck them.
Yeah, but it's no different it's no different to me than what I call the WCCC in the consultant class, and all of these people getting all their friends and all these contractors and all these people rich off of them serving their public service term. This just happens to be a higher amount. But the people that are taking a cut, those are all the friends of the people that get elected to these positions.
Correct.
Of course they do. He calls them.
That's called insider trading. The market gained $4 trillion while Trump Media closed up 23%, increased his net worth by $415 million. On April 23rd, Trump announced that the top holders of the Trump coin would win an exclusive dinner with him, and the coin surged over 60%. Just 58 wallets made more than $10 million apiece, totaling approximately $1.1 billion in gains. Meanwhile, 800,000 wallets of mostly smaller holders have lost money on their Trump coin. And it gets worse. Now, the kids went on it. World Liberty Financial, a crypto firm run by Trump's sons, Eric and Don Jr., and they're entitled to 75% of its.
Oh no, you got to go back, and I need somebody in the chat. So, guys, who's Beavis? Who's Butthead? Blonde,
Left
blonde,
is Beavis.
or the brunette?
Left is Beavis. Right is Butthead.
And your left is blonde. Yes.
Correct.
Okay, that's Beavis. Okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
A firm run by Trump's sons, Eric and Don Jr., and they are entitled to 75% of its revenue. And now it's being leveraged to facilitate pardons for criminals. Justin's son, a crypto billionaire, was under SEC investigation for securities fraud after investing $75 million in World Liberty Financial. Guess what, Kara? The SEC dismissed his case.
Oh.
Now, if you had just an average Joe Blow who got lucky and ended up making a few $1 million because somebody may have given him a tip, now that person's not getting out of it. That's the difference. When we talk about real financial crimes, the people who make the millions or even the tens of millions, they're not getting away with it. But the people who make the billions, they're getting away with it.
Well, I think a lot of people get away with it, and they sort of all mutually decide who's going to be the sacrificial lamb, right? Who's going to go down when somebody has to go down. They always sacrifice somebody. Correct. If you look around and your friends aren't going away, you're probably the sacrificial lamb of the group. But, you know, this is something that is very frustrating, especially for somebody like me who believes in abolition, because we decide as a society what constitutes crimes that we consider to be harmful to society and that we think are worthy of reparation and or punitive consequences. And we seem to only deem crimes of poverty as those crimes. Crimes by the rich aren't considered crimes. So it's very interesting to me. This is a level of theft that would be probably the top for the year. And yet that's okay. But some kid who grabs someone's purse because they're trying to like bring home some money to their family because they're starving, that's the person that we want to punish.
Got to punish somebody. Can't spend all that money on law enforcement and not use it, right?
This is what fucking infuriates me. I'm a realpolitik guy. I don't mind a little bit of corruption as long as it's good for all Americans. I don't mind a little bit of strong arming. But here's the problem, or the tragedy. If Trump brought half the competence, expertise, and elegance to governance as he does to grifting, the country would be in a much better place. We have a mob family running the country. That's the bad news. The worst thing is that Michael Corleone is managing the crime and Fredo is managing the government. You are so good at stealing. Yeah. Can you bring some of that elegance, that expertise to the government?
Please tell me he just called Trump Fredo, because that pleases me to no end.
Yeah. So he's effectively calling Kushner Michael Corleone, yes, and he's calling Trump Fredo.
Yes. That seems like that's a pretty fair assessment of what, like, in those particular roles. Yes, I would say that's a fair assessment.
Yeah. Well, it should not surprise anybody. And this is why we are not just one nation under blackmail. We are one nation under total corruption. And once this becomes more and more evident to the average person, the more quickly we accelerate towards revolution.
Yeah. I think that it's very important that we remember that it isn't just a corruption thing. Yes, we have a major corruption problem, but what is it that facilitates and like breeds that level of corruption? What would that be, Peter?
Desperation?
No. I'm going to say it's a capitalism problem, Peter.
Oh, well, sure.
So we have a capitalism problem. Okay, that's the problem. And no matter how many ways you twist and turn it, reforming that is not going to fix the capitalism problem. So that's the revolution. The revolution is about that. It's a class war, and that's where we are.
Well, it'll be interesting to converse with two gentlemen on the other side of the globe. Remember,
they're in tomorrow.
Yeah.
They're tomorrow. It fascinates me. It's like a time travel every time. Never ceases to amaze me when we have somebody where they're tomorrow. Yeah, it's like Back to the Future shit. It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah, don't stop thinking about tomorrow, otherwise it might not come. So if you guys are not familiar with BettBeat Media, you are going to become acquainted with two professors in the Far East. Karim and Peter, welcome to Revolutionary Change.
Welcome, and hello from the future.
Hi, what's it like over there? Does it look any better? Does it get better tomorrow?
Sadly, I can't say that it gets better only tomorrow, but give it 5-10 years maybe.
Okay, so you guys came to my attention. First of all, let me preface this. If you don't know, I am not on social media. So any discourse or communication that you had with Revolutionary Change or whatever is not, I know nothing about that. However, I was told that you guys made some sort of comment about that we don't go on people's channels that are small time channels. Did you say something accordingly that we only have big name people that we talk to on our channel?
And do we have to start ruckus?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And that is why. And the thing is that I never even knew who you were. And had somebody just told me, hey, we'd like to come on your show, I'd be like, sure, come on our show. So I'm just saying, I was new to that party. I was not aware.
Okay. You'll have to ask Karim about that. I'm more like you, not spending as much time online.
I don't do it. Peter handles the social media. The people are too mean, and I don't do mean.
They are mean.
I have to ask
It's not for
I have
me.
to ask our moderator and our assistant. I have to ask our assistant.
What is
AI bot?
I would say that what is probably of the most interest is just understanding what it's like living in the Far East and the comparisons to, let's say, Western culture. You know, what's different? What are we in the West missing that we have been constantly told, oh, you don't want to know what it's like in the East. It's not that good. Trust us. You don't want it. So what are we being fed that's a bunch of BS that you guys can share living in the Far East?
Jesus, where to start? Karim, you want to start off?
Sure. What can I say? There's so much to say. I'm from the Netherlands, by the way. I'm not from the United States, but it's also, the Netherlands is the heart of NATO. It's also the West. So I guess I speak for Peter as well.
You had healthcare, though.
What was that?
You did have healthcare, though. You know, that's something you did have that we don't have.
Yeah, but we are rapidly neoliberalizing in the Netherlands, where our healthcare also becomes extremely expensive, just like you guys. And it's a Western-wide problem, so to speak. And there are so many reasons why, in my case, I went to Asia. I think for me the radicalizing moment was 9/11. The way our societies changed, or at least the way I started to see our society after 9/11, slowly understanding imperialism, the war addiction of the West, etc., the racism, and for me it was a kind of you could say a paradise to go to China, in this case Hong Kong, China. The society runs well, it's safe, it's clean, you have everything from cheap. The only thing that's expensive, I must say, is housing, by the way, here in Hong Kong. But when it comes to groceries, electricity, water, it's all very very doable. In my opinion, I don't want to go back. So I don't know how that is for Peter, but for me, I think it's much better over here than in the West.
Are you guys both in Hong Kong? Are you both in the same? Are you both okay?
Yeah. I was just gonna say I'm almost halfway hoping that you guys don't succeed at fomenting revolution, because then I would feel honor bound to go back to help out. But no, I'm joking. That would be great. Karim touched on a bunch of important points. I would say, culturally, Hong Kong didn't really seem terribly different. I lived in New York for 12 years, so it kind of felt like I just moved to Far Eastern Queens. Past Flushing, much better infrastructure, no crime, no winter, et cetera, et cetera. The healthcare system here, Hong Kong is still a neoliberal hellhole city, like most places on the planet, in that there's a grotesque wealth gap. People work too hard. The rent is too damn high, et cetera, et cetera. But even this neoliberal city, the healthcare system is just so much less bad, so much better than in the U.S. It's not even comparable. I could go on for a long time, but just to maybe give you an anecdote that would really perhaps be surprising to some of your viewers. I've traveled a bit in the mainland, and one thing I hear again and again from people, they would say, this would probably surprise you, but in China, we abuse cops whenever we want. Like, we get in arguments with cops, and they can't really, do anything back to us. Whereas, I hear that and I'm like, Jesus Christ, if you try doing that in the US, you're going to get shot full of holes. Like, you can't get into arguments with cops nowadays. Some of them are will probably follow the law and not use violence on you. But as I'm sure you're aware, especially if you're melanated, arguing with the cops is a very, very, very bad idea in the US. So that's just like a little anecdote that would kind of give you an idea of how things are different from probably the dominant belief about China. But when it comes to infrastructure, yeah, it's just as good as people would get the impression of if they're just going on social media. They built an amazing high-speed rail network. You can go around the entire country by trains. I did that a few years ago. It was fantastic. Yeah. People are very friendly. It's basically like most other places on Earth when it comes to the fundamental kind of personality of people. There's no. I found traveling around the world, people are basically the same everywhere with slight cultural differences. And that's how it is in China. But I definitely recommend people come visit because it's definitely worth a trip.
Now, I mean, how do you say a place like, I'm glad you said you've been to the mainland, because I don't think that Hong Kong is necessarily typical of China in general. But this is honestly what my beef is with China, like, and why I don't, too many people. I'm like in my life trying to get out of South Florida and move to where there's no people. My goal is to live where there's less people. And all I can think of in China is too many people. So I don't know that I would dig that. But does the infrastructure properly accommodate the population, right? So like, what's the housing situation for people or unhoused situation for people? And what's it like in terms of traffic? Because great, having a lot of people is good if the infrastructure properly accommodates the population.
Yeah. I would. Peter, go ahead.
Well, I haven't run into any massive traffic jams. I think the thing is because they've built so much infrastructure, including subway systems. All of the cities I've been to have never really been in a crazy traffic jam. Compare that with India, and if you're worried about too many people,
that's also on the list. If you were in India, that is also on the list for a lot of the same reasons. Yes, just so many people.
Yeah, I would say in general, the infrastructure build out there has made those problems, much less than you might expect. And of course, there are plenty of rural places in China with very few people. But then, of course, there are also tons of mega cities. Like on my trip back last time, I had to change my itinerary. My friend said, "Oh, why don't you just stop in Changsha, a city I'd never heard of? Get there. It's a city of 20-something million people." And that's just, throughout the country.
I can't even imagine.
I would say it's amazing when it comes to the public transport and traffic, et cetera, at least in many places, such as Shenzhen or Hong Kong. It's cheap. It's super cheap. So you walk to the station, within 1-2 minutes, a new train will come, or metro. It's super clean. You hop on, you hop off. It costs almost nothing. You can go anywhere. Hong Kong is a super walkable city, so you don't even need to take the train. You can take, what can I say, bridges and underground, and it's super, super walkable. 60% is still nature and green in Hong Kong. People always think that it is a what is it? How do you say that in English? A concrete jungle, but actually 60% is greenery over here. Yeah, very convenient in that sense. But I must admit and must say, Jen, if you are somebody who likes the quiet life, then I think you would be somebody who would be more attracted to the smaller towns that China has, but not Hong Kong.
Yeah. No, I mean, China and India are both places that I will only go to when I know someone who lives there, someone or has people there that are in the countryside and people that know their way around and know stuff, because that is definitely more my thing. Like the idea of Hong Kong to me, it's like, and I've seen videos of that city that the ground floor is the 26th floor and the trains go through like I would lose my mind. That's like Doctor Strange.
Yeah, well, I mean, like Karim said, it is 60% park here, and there are beaches in the city limits of Hong Kong that you go to, and you might as well be in rural Thailand, like gorgeous beaches without any construction or development in sight. My contention is that Hong Kong is just objectively the most beautiful city in the world, leaving aside architecture, blah, blah, blah. If you define a city as everything contained within the city limits, you know, what other city, I don't know of any other city in the world that has the kind of natural beauty that Hong Kong has. And you just take a bus there and you're there from the city center in like an hour and 15 minutes.
Now, China has been known, obviously, through industrial growth over the last generation to have a lot of, we'll say, environmental issues, particularly with pollution. Shanghai comes to mind. Is that something that has changed for the better? Is it still a big problem? And then I also want to get your guys' opinion on food, which is a big one as well compared to the West. Well, not from the context that you're thinking of. See, my co-host partner is a smartass, and she always thinks that I'm like talking about, oh, is this food great? No, the problem is, I see the food here in the West is poison.
I knew what you were talking about, actually.
I thought you were referring to me just trying to figure out a reason to get over there so I can.
No, but thank you to my smartass partner for just assuming when you might make an ass of you and me.
I learned that in the Marines. I love that thing. I assume ASSU me. I love that. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. I think to answer the food question, there's a colleague of ours here at a different university, Kinchi Lau, who focuses a lot on the food system. So I would highly recommend you speak to her to get a better answer to that question. Certainly, there were massive pollution problems in major Chinese cities. The exact date range I couldn't give you, but over the past, I'd say 10 years or so, they've been doing significant efforts at cleaning up the major cities like Shanghai and Beijing. And so if you look at measurements, I think the AQI index for the major cities in China over the past 20 years or so, I think you'll basically see like an increase in pollution that peaks, I don't know, maybe early 2010s, somewhere around then. Don't quote me on that. But certainly now when you go to the major cities, it's a huge difference from a place like Bombay or Delhi in India, which hasn't had the same kind of cleanup efforts. Just one little anecdote. When I was traveling around China in, 2019, I noticed, I didn't go to any of the major cities, all like third tier, fourth tier cities, as they're called. And I noticed there was not a single gas-powered scooter. Tons of scooters everywhere, but all of them were electric. And I thought, that's weird. You know, I never heard of that. So I talked to people and they said, yeah, you know, a couple of years ago, the government had a subsidy program where we could trade in our gas-powered scooters and get a discount on electric scooters. So it's just an example of how, you know, when the government has a policy goal, they're much more open to radical policy to really accomplish something. Whereas, as you know, in the US, any sort of radical idea like that would run into all sorts of moneyed opposition. Anyone who stands to lose money from a transition to, say, electric scooters or electric cars or whatever the question is, they can put up significant roadblocks to prevent that. Whereas in China, they're like, no, we're not going to allow the power of money to easily be transferred into political power so that they can do policies like that.
Now, what do you attribute that to? I mean, obviously, everybody who is a staunch capitalist to the bitter end is going to say, well, it's communism and that's the reason. But I'm sure that's probably not the reason. There is something to be said for Eastern culture versus Western culture when it comes to the collective and recognizing what's best for society. How would you describe it?
Yeah, I would describe it as a mixture of capitalism and socialism.
Yeah.
I think first of all, people who say that China is hyper communist and super socialist, I think they're being hyperbolic. I think that's way too extreme.
Well, one thing I can assure you, Karim, that anybody who makes a statement like that has never stepped foot on China soil.
Exactly.
Guaranteed.
They don't know the definitions of these words. So yes, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. The people who shout the loudest, Marxists, communists, often have no idea what they're talking about. But on the other hand, China is also not fully capitalist in that sense. China is a very interesting hybrid, you could say. Some would say that they're still transitioning towards socialism. I think Peter is a believer of that idea. I am not very convinced yet. I think there needs to be more of a stronger working class movement to push the country towards socialism. I do not see that at the moment. But what is indeed interesting in China is that the Communist Party does control the economy and also the billionaires within that economy. So it decides where to put growth. So if you need growth in green energy, China invests in that, and that has a tremendously positive impact on the society. While in the West, it doesn't matter what you want. If the billionaire class says no, it's just not going to happen. And they're just I don't know if I can swear on this show, by the way.
Oh, you certainly can. And I would appreciate if you answer
Please in English, or I won't understand.
Yeah. No, of course. No, I said in the billionaire class in the West, it doesn't matter what we say. They just go on and fucking up our societies, and it's just not stopping. And somebody who says you cannot criticize the government in China, and that is enough for any person who values freedom. Well, I think we don't have much of a right to talk about that stuff when we have young students being thrown into jail because they write an op-ed piece about Israel. I just find that so incredibly hypocrite. It's the same as people who say like, "Oh, MBS is coming in visiting Netanyahu, visiting Donald Trump," and I'm like, what is weird about that? Is a terrorist like Donald Trump above MBS or when he's meeting Netanyahu, for Christ's sake? He's meeting a genocidal maniac, and we complain about MBS. We have that weird kind of, you can say that, hypocrisy in the West, where we complain about other societies without looking at our own societies. And this is another example. And to be honest, yes, you can criticize China. Peter and I do it all the time. We live in China. Our colleagues at the universities do it. They talk about policy. They talk about what they don't like. But on the other hand, I think, and probably Chinese people know about that better, what you can and cannot say. No, that is true. I think there are some things you cannot say. I don't know what that is. I think maybe more personal political opinions. I don't know, Peter. Maybe you know more about that. But I do know about policy. There's a lot of debate in China.
Yeah, I mean, the research from several years ago was looking at internet comments. You're perfectly free to criticize
Can I freeze you for 1 second, Pete?
Yeah.
Just for 1 second. If you're going to come on our channel and create multiple accounts and put in the same message like everyone's getting caught for doing now, I'm not feeding trolls. I'm just pointing out that there are bot accounts everywhere. So you have to critique the message ever so slightly to make it seem like you actually are not copying and pasting. I just telling you, I catch everything. So good try.
Sorry. Continue.
No, as I was saying, yeah, the research from several years ago is that people criticize the government all they like, and whatever they're criticizing. The thing that gets clamped down on are attempts to organize IRL. Like the government is worried about people forming a kind of alternative organization that potentially could be the base for counter-revolution. So that was the result of research several years ago. I haven't heard anything that has changed.
Something
to be very honest, if I can add one more thing, to be very honest, one of the reasons Peter and myself feel very good at the university here in China is that we do a lot of work on imperialism and a lot of wars, imperialism, etc., etc. I feel more free and more safe to do that kind of work over here than I would be in the Netherlands and talk about, for example, the colonial history or the currently imperial NATO and that kind of stuff, I think that would be, I would not even get a job probably at one of the universities.
Oh,
So
yeah, totally.
Yeah, that leads me into like, I kind of have two things I want to say. One thing that I had heard about that's very cool, and I don't know if you guys know about this, but as somebody who lives in South Florida, we have consistent building and overdevelopment in low-lying areas that are already very water insecure in terms of fresh water and all of these things. And the capitalism is just, they can't build enough. They don't care where the resources are going to come from. They don't care if it's going to be flooded. Whoever's left holding that bag, that's their problem. And something I had heard about in China, maybe you can tell me if this is true, that the government there has invested and subsidized people in a way, and subsidize them in a way to encourage people to get out of climate vulnerable places and move to places that are less vulnerable to climate crisis, flooding, whatever the different climate issues are there. And it made sense to me in terms of that there is more of a concern of the collective. So I was just curious if you know anything about that. Like, it just seems like one more thing where they're just going to be practical and reasonable in terms of what's in the best interest for the most people.
Yeah, I haven't read anything about that particularly, but it does very much sound like the Chinese government's MO. Like, I think the way I think about it most on a more abstract level is, if you've ever read Leviathan by Thomas Hobbes, he asks, why do the people create this Leviathan, this government, this massively powerful body that could destroy them? Why do they do that? And he's like, well, it's basically because you've got all of these little Leviathans, all these little bullies around in society that would otherwise cause mayhem and terror and dominate other people. And so that's why people create a Leviathan, so that the Leviathan can squish the other bullies so that they can live in peace. Well, basically the Chinese government is more like that Hobbesian Leviathan, where they do at least try to crush down the would-be bullies, the would-be dominators, like the real estate developers who would build tons of property right by the water that's fully expected to be submerged in 10, 15 years, because, they won't be holding the bag. IBG, YBG, I'll be gone, you'll be gone. Well, not the person who buys the house, you'll be screwed. So that kind of predatory, selfish behavior tends to be tamped down. I think it's fair to say, like on that kind of abstract level of the difference between the US government and its philosophy and the Chinese government and its philosophy.
I would be curious as to why you think there is so much saber rattling, when it comes to Taiwan, and why we feel the need to get involved. I mean, I think it's pretty obvious what Taiwan is all about. It's all about the South China Sea. It can't possibly be any other reason, because it's all about money and power. I mean, to me, the American empire is pretty transparent in what their intentions always are. That's why we're effing around with Venezuela at the same time, largest crude oil reserve in the entire world. Obviously, the international incident that Pelosi caused a few years back was insane. We're lucky that it didn't end up becoming something a lot worse. So what do you attribute our saber rattling with Taiwan and what that means for the future? Because thankfully, it hasn't become a focus of this administration as of yet. But who's to say, with how crazy things are, that it might not become?
They're focusing on China just in somewhere else. All of this Venezuela stuff, it all comes back to the trade thing and controlling that over China's initiative. But yeah, please explain that, because the Taiwan thing seems like just like a spark or an excuse.
Yeah, I would say the Venezuela. I just wrote an article on our Substack about Venezuela. I suspect that the Venezuela thing, the sudden threat of Venezuela, actually has to do with the preparation of a war with Iran. I think that when the Strait of Hormuz is being shut down, 20% of the oil transfers, I think then the United States will have the empire will have another source for oil. So I think we need to link these things. When it comes to Taiwan, anything, whether it's Taiwan, whether it's Hong Kong, whether it's Xinjiang, the United States will grab anything to try and wreak havoc in China, because China is a contender, and China is a contender that is not as capitalist. I say as capitalist, right, as the United States. So China is, you could say, has these socialist influences and does not allow the billionaire class, the capitalist class, to have free reign. That is threatening. That is another system that's coming up, and the United States is very good at clamping down on alternative systems to maintain the hegemony of capitalism. And I think that is one of the reasons why the United States wants to see China destroyed, like all other societies. And my worry, personal worry, is that the Chinese may still not realize enough how serious the United States is. That is, that the United States really, really wants to destroy it. There is no way out. There's no we can be friends. We can find ways to clear. It's not going to happen. And I think there are still parts of the Chinese political class that still thinks they can be friends. And I think that's not going to happen.
Yeah, there's definitely a liberal ideological current within China that really wants to have capitalist democracy in their country, and there's been this current for quite a while. I think it's fair to say that they were pretty discredited around the time of the Great Financial Crisis, because they viewed the U.S. as the beacon of capitalist democracy, and then with that massive failure and the corresponding ideological failure, that the belief that markets would always self-regulate and it wouldn't be in anyone's interest to allow a massive bubble and dangerous derivatives, et cetera, et cetera. So I think to generalize, I think the liberal ideological current is kind of on the back foot in China. But your question was more about Taiwan and why the U.S. Is so interested. Yeah, I agree with Peter entirely. It's all about the South China Sea, but it's also just about domination. The U.S. ruling class has had total domination of the world since the collapse of the USSR, and they very much like that situation where they can basically give orders to any country in the world, and the pressure that they can exert on every country on the world is essentially such that the government has to accede to U.S. demands. Maybe they can negotiate a little bit, but the U.S. has arbitrary sway over other countries. The problem in their mind with China is that China has developed to the point where that arbitrary sway cannot be exerted. China can say, nope, we're not doing that. And that is the problem. That is the threat in the minds of our psychotic ruling class. And that's the major concern is getting that group of people out of power and because I was just saying to my students the other day, it's like you have a minuscule ideological minority in the US who believes that the world is a game of Risk, and they can, they want to play like on a chessboard and dominate the world. Very few people in the US think like that. It's only the foreign policy elite. If you ask an average American on the street, and you tell them, how those people think, they'll react like these are crazy people. That's not at all a mainstream US belief. But those are the people that run the world because they are in control of U.S. foreign policy.
I would agree. I would say that for the most part, the average American doesn't agree with how they're governed. And it's becoming more obvious that we are heading in that direction, which is why I think BRICS is a significant situation. It is taking away from the power structure that the U.S. has been so accustomed to for so long. But you can only poke the bear so many times before you start pushing certain nations that would otherwise be at odds very often and finding themselves agreeing on how can we cross-pollinate. And in the case of Russia and China, it's obvious that our actions over the past, it's hard to say when it really began. I personally think from a domestic policy perspective, Clinton is the worst president of my lifetime. And from a foreign policy perspective, Bush is the worst president of my lifetime. And the fact that they went back to back over a 16-year period, I would say that you put what happened right in the middle, which was, I believe, the true breaking of the trust amongst the American people when the judicial branch decided to put the presidential candidate who did not actually win the election into the White House. There has been a division since that moment that has never been rectified or remedied. And so now everything is starting to come to a head. Policies that get passed one year don't get felt necessarily tomorrow. But of all the domestic policies that I say are maybe the absolute worst, and there's a lot of them, if Hillary Clinton had become president instead of Trump, the Trans-Pacific Partnership 1,000% would have been passed. However, the removal of Glass-Steagall by Clinton back in '99 is probably still the most significant in terms of where the banks really became this monolith of power that is too big to fail. And so now I wonder, how are those oligarchs here in the States and oligarchs from around the world who now come to the States to make their fortune off our backs? I always love Elon because he makes his fortune and then says the American people can't have health care, even though he had it when he grew up. Lots of people, especially the Brits, are like that as well. I am wondering, from your perspective, is there going to be a reckoning of sorts with the power structure in this country as a result of BRICS? Do you see that happening in the near future?
Near future, I don't know. I'll be short here. I think near future, no, because basically the only powerful country within BRICS is China. You would need to have the development of unity among the BRICS bloc, and really, if you think of it in the United Nations terms, the G77, the grouping of the world's majority countries, underdeveloped peripheral countries in the world system, you would need to have a much greater degree of unity and cooperation. And then you would see something like the extraction of so many of these countries from under US domination. And of course, for our psychotic ruling class, they would view that as an existential threat. God knows how they would react, but hopefully they will be on the outs by then.
Yeah, I would say that also we all are, especially those who are from the West, such as ourselves, we are all desperately clinging on to hope. And I think BRICS was one of those things that really, really gave and gives us hope for some kind of alternative. But we had recently some interesting guests on our show, Professor Walden Bello, Professor Patrick Bond, but also Fiorella Isabel and Vanessa Beeley, who we often talk to, friends of the show. And they are all very, you could say, relatively critical, also quite nuanced. And I think we need that. We have been through a period of, I always say, BRICS hallelujah. We were in this hallelujah phase. We have this kind of alternative to imperialism, but increasingly there are more voices that say, okay, it's not really happening. Patrick Bond would even say they're sub-imperialist. That is, they often cooperate with the imperialism, with Western imperialism. And an example of that would be, for example, Vanessa Beeley would say how Russia operates in Syria, often deals with Israel and the United States, but also what we just recently saw in the UN, where China and Russia abstained from what was it, the UNSC, the Security Council resolution, and which pretty much handed over the Palestinians to their killers. And I think this also happened in 2011, by the way, when there was a UNSC vote on Libya. And in that case, you can see that also BRICS nations in the global south often, in some way, shape, or form, cooperate with US, Western Israeli imperialism. So I have become a little bit more critical and nuanced, even though I am happy that there is this kind of alternative and that indeed China and Russia seem to be trading increasingly without the dollar. I think that is the most necessary thing if we want the empire to fall, that the dollar is not the world currency anymore. And yeah, but besides that, like Peter, I don't have my hopes too high at this moment.
Okay. All right. So listen, guys, we're going to do something a little different, right? Because I know you guys want to ask us some questions. So for people who have not been here, who are new or whatever, our guests have their show. And so is that okay, Peter, if we let them ask some questions? Because I know they want to talk to us about they have questions for us, and we were scheduled to go on your show, and then we had to reschedule that, and that's fine, and we will. But I thought if you want to go ahead and do that, we could do that.
Yeah, excellent.
Ever since moving away from the U.S., I feel like I don't have my finger on the pulse over there anymore. So one thing that I've been watching from abroad with some interest is it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm interested in how you guys are viewing this, but it seems like that even normie liberals and Democrats, by normie I just mean people who haven't spent that much time reading books about politics. Maybe they tune into the media, the mass media a lot, but you don't really get a good sense of how the world works by tuning into the New York Times, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I mean by normies. But it seems like they're getting really radicalized nowadays, like getting real pissed at the Democratic establishment. Am I viewing this with rose-tinted glasses, and you think that this is just a tempest in a teapot, and they'll, the next propaganda line that MSNBC and the New York Times rolls out will sucker them back in? Or do you think that this is the start of something potentially, a break from the Democratic Party establishment? What do you think? How are you guys reading that development?
Peter, you want to go? I mean, I'll go. Okay, so I think that the Democrats are dead and just walking around dead, and they don't realize they're dead, and it's just going to slowly become more apparent. Actually, maybe quickly become more apparent to them. And when you're talking about like the normie your interest in being optimistic about this, I'm going to turn it back like how you responded about BRICS in a way and be like, okay, well, the normie Dems and their level of interest in actually changing things is directly correlated to their class. Okay, we are in the middle of a major global class war, like what you guys were talking about, and that is really going to be the main difference in the people that are starting to actually wake up, and the normie Dems who just want to feel comfortable and everything is fine as long as Trump isn't there, everything will be fine. And unfortunately, the Democratic Party is largely controlled and comprised by those people, which is why I don't think there's a future there. I think our future is not going to be electoral politics, and anything remotely in electoral politics, I think will actually come from a split in the Republican Party that leads to an anti-war, anti-corruption, America First type movement, which then working class and labor people could almost identify with more than what we're ever going to see from the elitist Democrats. That's my take, Peter.
I think that there is going to be an America First party. That's inevitably what will come from this, whether it's through the libertarian faction, whether there is a cross-pollination with progressives that are primarily populist and not into what I consider to be the overwoke distractions of social policy. Because let's face it, anything that does not relate to whether you can put food on the table, to me, is generally a waste of time. Pet projects for certain people that are in positions of comfort do not give a damn about whether or not the average person has health care, has education, has clean water, air, the planet's on fire, poisoning our soil. And we're also a very selfish culture. Western culture, by definition, is selfish because, again, it's all about, a free market without any type of a social safety net. We have a welfare state that we have, which is created in part because you either end up breaking your ass to be successful, and that doesn't get you far, and then you have a welfare state, which in some respects even pays you more to not do anything. So the dependency becomes a really big problem. And so I do think we're heading for some type of a revolution. I don't think it's hit just yet, but this is a class war, bar none. The people that are in the upper classes, it's part of the reason why the issue of Israel is really, it's not red versus blue by any stretch. In fact, there is a lot more movement to end the state of Israel from the libertarian red side of politics than there even is from the blue progressive side of politics. Yeah. Because the libertarian red side of politics, they're armed. They're armed to the teeth. And we are the one nation in the world that truly embodies the ability to take the law into their own hands if they have to. And so by that measure, I think that the United States is heading in a direction that they may not necessarily want to go in, but they don't have a choice. which is why when I do my solo show, I will cover certain people that generally I would not break bread with. But I've basically been like a man on a mission regarding the Charlie Kirk assassination, because I'm convinced beyond any doubt that that was done by Israel, because this was a person who, it could have been anybody. I mean, we've seen different voices over the years that have had a large platform and they voice their concerns or their ideology for the purpose of making money and gaining power. But when somebody decides that they're not going to go along with the narrative, and they were warned, like the Hamptons meeting, you're going to get along. You're going to go along and get along. And if you're not, well, good luck. And then he was made an example of. Public executions are always done to make an example of not just that person, but also to send a signal to anybody else who's thinking about getting out of line, what's coming for you if you even try it. So I think it's just inevitable that we're heading for this revolutionary moment. And we, again, have to just recognize that from an Eastern perspective, looking at the West, that if you don't take care of your people, eventually they're going to rebel.
That's where we're at here. So that's our answer to the Democrat question.
They're losing the mandate of heaven. You hear that trope in the U.S. or the West all the time, like, oh, this is some exotic Oriental thing, the mandate of heaven. It's like every society on planet Earth has the same concept, basically, when you piss off the people too much.
I just want to tell you before I forget, I think you two would also find it very interesting, and your audience, I think, as well. On our channel, we just had recently a conversation with Dr. Aaron Good. It went very well, that conversation, for our small channel. We just have 12K subscribers, but that one was doing pretty well. And Aaron Good really goes deep into that connection, that criminal connection between the U.S. deep state and Israel. And he also goes into the Kirk situation, but also, of course, JFK. Very, very good conversation. So I can really advise you two, but also your audience to have a look. And about the class war, Jen, I think we are on the exact same line when it comes to that. And I think what people often do not realize is that's the way I see it. This class war, and we often have Professor Gerald Horn on, who says the same thing. This class war is friend of the show. He's many times on our show. Love the guy. And he also always says, we are in an international class war. We often forget that. So we believe in good states versus bad states. And then, well, we have now good states rising and they're going to beat the bad states. But Walden Bellow also said, no, you have an elite all over the world and you have a working class, and you either push back against that elite or you don't. It's not a nation war, a war between nations. It's a war between classes. And that war is international. And one final thing I wanted to say to Peter, to other Peter, not my Peter, but Jen's Peter. and I know you guys are not married, so I didn't mean it like that. You know what my fear is, Peter, when it comes to the right and the right wing, that there's a split, America First, anti-Israel, which I also am very enthusiastic about. I think everybody's enthusiastic about that. My fear is with the right, that the Israelis or the deep state, whatever you want to say, they'll find a brown patsy that is going to do some kind of false flag attack, and everybody falls in line. Everybody falls in line. It's an Iranian or a Palestinian or whatever. And that's my fear with the right. They're often very loyal to authority. They're very loyal to the flag. And you just need one brown patsy that does something really, really bad, and they'll fall in line. What do you think?
I disagree.
I think I'm going to kick Travers' ass. Travers, pipe down there. Them's fighting words. Sorry.
Anyway, I don't agree, because I think that you get to a point where you just see the system for what it is. I think it's becoming more and more obvious that the distractions again, you got race hustlers in every culture. It doesn't matter what your skin color is. You could be white, you could be black, Hispanic, Asian. It doesn't matter. There's race hustlers all over our political arena. You have the white supremacist types, and then you have the black power types that are completely corporate, like the Al Sharptons of the world. Like, there's no, that you can't, cutting it with that knife of, oh, well, they're going to find a brown patsy. It's like, yeah, they were able to do that for a while, but you know what? When the country is suffering economically the way that it is, and now that you had this big expose, the latest expose that came out about where are all these accounts coming from, the fact that the Department of Homeland Security's social media accounts are run out of Tel Aviv, I mean, that tells you all you need to know. And that wakes up everybody. They're like, oh yeah, these things are just distractions. So Jen and I don't see eye to eye on immigration or a number of other social
I
issues.
just want to wait. I want to say something because I do agree that there's always going to be a brown person to blame for stuff, right? So right now it's a combination of, you know, do we hate the Muslims or the Mexicans crossing the border? But it's brown people nonetheless, right? So there's always going to be that inclination to have people punch down and not be distracted, you know, and be distracted so we're not looking at who's really fighting, who we're really needing to fight. But I think it's working less and less and less. And I think that is definitely correlating with how bad our economy is and what people are now able to see on their own phones. I think that whole, plus with what happened with however 20-something years with Iraq and Afghanistan and all of that stuff after 9/11, I do think that because we're so able to see everything on our phones, that it's not going to work. I don't think it's going to work as well. I think that it's old already.
You eventually.
Okay. Yeah, I certainly hope so. I share the same fear with as Karim, but I don't have my finger on the pulse of the U.S. And one of the more hopeful things that I see or maybe just imagine is that, you know, like both of you were saying, this sort of tactic might be losing its potency. Like if you go back to the Iraq War, they had a year-long propaganda campaign to get everybody behind it. Today, you know, I just have to suspect that a similar attempt would not fall on such gullible ears. Like there seems to be so much conspiracy theorizing. I don't mean that in a pejorative sense. You know, from a lawyer's perspective, conspiracies happen every single day. Some of them are true, some of them are false, whatever. But the fact that there's so much distrust seemingly throughout U.S. society makes me kind of lean in your more skeptical direction about whether a similar propaganda campaign would work. My only additional fear, though, is that, you know, yes, it's because of our screens, but what if that phenomenon has occurred because the owners of our screens, the people who own the social media companies, were solely focused on profit maximization and only recently got a much more heavy hand from the government to start censoring things and just, you know, deprioritizing them so that they can in the future just stop the spread of what would otherwise be a very convincing argument or what have you. That I just put that out there as a potential worry.
Well, I think that ship has sailed. Like, I think that we cannot unsee what we have seen. And there are too many avenues now where people who, whether it's whistleblowers or people that are veterans or people that have been on the inside that are coming out and reporting what they're saying. I just think there's too much of it. And they could sit there and keep trying to play whack-a-mole. That's what it is. They'll keep, like, maybe Larry Ellison will keep trying to buy up all the media as fast. It's like he's like the Onceler from the Lorax, you know. It's like you just like get it all, and it's not working. It's not working, and ultimately they're going to lose.
And this is why they're going to lose. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Revolutionary Change PAC, but we did start a PAC, and we were happy to promote the Aza PAC, which came out recently, but that is a public PAC. We are a super PAC, so we are not able to coordinate directly with the candidates in question, but we do have a mini slate that we have. But more importantly, we have content that has been gaining traction on both Instagram and Facebook. Here's an example of one of the short ads that we recently put out.
Safety and the security of Israel must always be a priority, a high priority of the United States. And as long as I am leader in the Senate, support for Israel's security in the Senate will be non-negotiable.
This is not your place. It's much better in Israel.
We are done with AIPAC-funded candidates that put foreign interests ahead of the interests of working Americans. You can help us beat AIPAC at their own game. Please donate to Revolutionary Change now and help us fight fire with fire.
This is interesting. I just wanted to bring it up. I'm sorry. I hate to cover Pete's face, but yeah, I know you're. It's like Mike Wazowski from Monsters Inc. You know, he was so excited to be on the cover, even though he was behind the QR code. So this is somebody mentioning an interesting conversation you had with Jay Shapiro about growing up inside the Jewish American community. So, Pete, are we done?
That's also one of the reasons why we wanted to get you on. Yeah.
Okay, so we could talk about that. We have 10 minutes before you have to go. I'm happy to talk about that, and I'm happy to come on your show as long as it's not too early in the morning.
Sure. Great. No, I wanted to have you guys on our show, and we will definitely do that in the near future, because I think both of you are. I deeply respect both of you, the way you deal with Zionism in the United States. You are not. How can you say it? You're not self-censoring. You're very courageous in that sense. And Peter and I, we like that you're very direct. And I think you guys need, you guys deserve a lot of respect for that. So I hope to talk to you a bit more about that in the future. But I maybe as a last final question, what so many questions. Okay, which one am I going to choose? I'm just going to choose a simple one. What made you guys switch? Maybe what happened that you became so anti-Zionist? Of course, we have the genocide right now. For me, it was 9/11 in those days. It happened for me, but especially in your case, Jen, you are of Jewish descent yourself. What happened? Please tell us.
Sure. So I mean, and we've talked about this on our show about a year before. Yeah, it was October 22. We did a series called Deconstructing Zionism on our show. It was a year before October 7th. You know, for me, Peter wasn't raised Zionist like I was. He wasn't raised to the level that I mean, I was bat mitzvahed in Israel. I spent 6 weeks there on a high school program, planted trees in occupied territory, was used as a tool of ethnic cleansing as a teenager. And I have a lot of rage about this because at the time I didn't realize, you know, I mean, we were lied to and brainwashed and propagandized. And by we, I mean Western Ashkenazi Jews that are raised Zionist. Like we were taught a land without a people for a people without a land. We were taught that there's no such thing as Palestinians. I mean, and the brainwashing is from you don't know anything else. It's not like one thing. It's just constant. And it's this, the community and the Jewish Community Center and Hillel and B'nai B'rith and all of the different things. It's just like, and I in a very Jewish community. And so I was definitely a Zionist. I wanted to make Aliyah and I was going to live in Israel and I was all with it. And then after, I want to say the second Intifada, when we had the March of Return and the violence was just starting to really get to a whole other level. And I was just paying attention in a different way. And it was also around the same time that BDS was picking up speed. And I was starting to see anti-BDS legislation here that was, to me, a complete infringement on our First Amendment rights. So now I'm seeing the tentacles, like, and how that's affecting our freedom here. So that was happening around the same time as the second Intifada for me. I was paying attention to that. But it was only, I want to say, in 2019, when I was running for Congress the first time, that I officially parted ways with the concept of a two-state solution, where I officially was like, okay, it isn't just a matter of the Palestinians have rights and they need a state, right? It's a matter of Zionism is evil, it's white supremacy, and there should not even be a Jewish state, right? So that, for me, really was even as late as 2019, sad to say. But yeah, it was a combination of things, but really running for office has been very eye-opening for a lot of reasons, but I do a lot of research. I spend a lot of hours a day researching things and reading and speaking to authors and experts. And it just sort of happened for me, but I don't know. Did I answer it? Did I answer it well enough? Like, does that make sense?
Could I follow up?
You did.
Oh,
Wait,
sorry.
Oh, sorry, I was muted. No. I was just going to say better late than never, and you definitely make up for it. I mean, you've become so radically anti-Zionist, and together with your co-host, I think again, I want to emphasize, and I will hopefully you guys allow us to post this also on our channel later on, so that our audience gets introduced to you guys. I think you guys deserve a lot of respect for the way you really go against Zionism and keep going. I think that's fantastic. And but I think Peter wants to ask a question.
Yeah, just to follow up, because this is something we asked Jay about, because it's something that similar to what I experienced starting off kind of very far right ideologically as a teenager, that it's not just a matter of it's not a purely intellectual matter of discovering that the beliefs that you were inculcated with actually don't stand up to scrutiny and that the counter arguments seem far superior. There's also this whole relational aspect of the threat of losing friends, family relationships, etc. How are you able to navigate that and deal with that massive emotional threat?
That's definitely more a me question, because I don't think Peter has really had that to the extent at all that I've had that. This is the thing, like my herd has definitely been thinned significantly over the past 10 years for a variety of reasons. Whether it was people that would attack me for supporting Bernie Sanders and not getting behind Hillary Clinton, whether it's Zios and the fact that I had a friend who I thought was my friend for 20 years who blew me off after October 7th because I just was not seeing it in that same way. So the herd has definitely thinned. I'm fortunate that my parents are like, they're with me in this. They're not loud about it, and they want to enjoy their older years without stressing too much. And I don't blame them, because they worked really hard to get where they are, but they're supportive in terms of they understand why I believe what I believe. But yeah, and to some extent it's been hard, but the upside is that I'm meeting the people that are supposed to be my people, and the people that are not my people weren't meant to be my people. And this has really expedited that process. And I'm older than you guys. Like I'm 54. I am not looking to maintain bullshit, fake, superficial relationships with people. And I really do not spend a lot of time with people to begin with. So I'm good with my herd thinning. I really am. It needed to happen. But yeah, and I'm also very privileged that me speaking out has not had an economic impact on me. And I'd like to think I would do so anyway, but it is definitely from a position of privilege that I can say what I'm saying, which is why I spend so much time saying what I'm saying, because I know that I can, at least until another synagogue calls the police on us again.
I've had to sever relationships with certain people, what you would consider acquaintances or even outright family. I do not hide how I feel. I come from a mixed family. I identify much more with my father's side than my mother's. And I guess I just kind of grew up in an environment where I was always an independent outside thinker. If I sensed that something was wrong, then I just didn't accept it. I never went along to get along. That's not who I am. So when I saw for years, I mean, again, I have that, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Peter. Sorry, guys. He has another thing, because again, it's tomorrow for him.
Yes.
So he has a whole day ahead of himself. Okay.
And so I thought for a long time that, was I doing something wrong? But I realized, no, I wasn't. I have members of my family that are Jewish, and I could tell you that they carried a real sense of supremacy about them. And I didn't want any part of it. I didn't want to hear it. It went double for how they spoke about my Italian grandfather and my Irish father. And when that started happening, I said, well, I don't give a flying fuck who these people are. I don't care if I am blood related. I don't want anything to do with them. They can go off and be in their own little stupid enclave. And now, as a result of them biting off more than they can chew, there's going to come a point in the near future where they're going to have to be looking over their shoulders for the rest of their lives. And you know what? They earned it. They earned it. So that's where we are.
I can relate to that also. I mean, I'm from a mixed family myself. My mother is Dutch and my father is Algerian, and I have half of my family is well, not half. That's not true, but there is a certain segment that are just hardcore racists. I mean, you will not believe severe racists. And for me, it's the same thing. It's end of the show. No more contact, and I break with them. And also, when you are pro-Israel or Zionist, I can't talk to you. I cannot. And the people who say like, oh, you have to respect other people's opinions, I totally agree. I respect other people's opinions. But if your opinion means that you dehumanize a certain segment of humanity, then I'm done. I just can't do it. You know what I mean?
Yes, that's a red line. It's a deal breaker. We are not, there is no agree to disagree. You don't get to say that you support white supremacy and killing of brown people and then say, but with just a political difference. No, right. No, we cannot agree to disagree. We're not going to hang out and work together. It's just done.
We have been hovering around a little less than 500 live viewers for most of the evening. And this is probably the one person in the entire chat putting out that message. So
and we don't know that it's even a real person. So
that's true. Okay. We don't know that. But what we do know is that even if assuming that that person is real, well, then that is going to show you that there is no, it's not even a question about consensus at this point. It's a question of they're all alone and they know it. And the only reason they haven't been dragged through the streets is because they do hold a great deal of financial infrastructure and power in this country. For now. How that's going to unfold in the near future, I am going to reserve judgment. But from what I'm seeing, they're on borrowed time. And so they should be. I have been saying it for probably a year now. We can't save the Palestinians. And after what just happened at the UN, it's even more proof that we can't. However, can we end the Zio state's stranglehold over the American people? That I believe we can stop. And it's becoming more and more obvious by the day that that's where we're heading. And so while some people may be hesitant about who they necessarily want to break bread with along certain ideological lines, as long as it's a class line and it's an anti-Zio line, then I believe that we're going to get there, and we might get there a lot faster than people think. And so that, I think, is a great place to conclude the conversation. Karim, if you have any final thoughts or anything you'd like to share before you go, we really appreciate you guys coming on this evening.
Not much to add. Thank you for having us on. We are big fans of your show and your battle against Zionism. We hope to talk to you soon on our show. To your audience, we have a lot of conversations about imperialism and Palestine. So come to BettBeat Media. We have a Substack as well, but also a YouTube channel. And I guess that's it, and hope to talk to you guys soon.
Yeah, we're happy to come on. Not too early in the morning.
All right.
Thanks, Karim. Happy holidays.
Bye. Yeah, guys in the chat, ixnay on the UJ hate. Ixnay. It's not working for me. I'm not vibing with it.
Human, I'm not saying that we can't save the Palestinians.
No, it bothers me, Peter, when you say that too, because it does sort of sound like that.
What I'm saying is that I'm not sure that this country isn't going to do everything in their power to make sure that we can't. That's my point.
And I think also what we're talking about is what's happening to the Palestinians in Gaza, what's happening to the Palestinians in the West Bank seems to be completely outside of our control.
That's what I'm saying.
Seems to be completely outside of our control. Yes. And so what's in our control, or at least I don't even know nothing's in our control. I honestly don't even know what's in our control.
What is in our control?
I want the Zio state to get what it has coming. I want Zionists to get what they have coming. And I will do everything I can to help facilitate that.
Well,
that's all we can do.
Yep. That is our mission, and we're working on it. And what we can control is how much more we grow our channel, which is just over 9,500 subscribers away from a plaque. So who could have, 4 or 5 months ago, who could have even thought that we would be heading in this direction? But we're here. And even though this isn't necessarily everybody's cup of tea in terms of conversation, we were still hovering around 500 live viewers for a good portion of the evening. So clearly we're having some type of an impact. And we're very grateful for those of you who understand that our channel is not about shock value. It's about really, it was about transforming politics into service. And now it's about transforming those who were not revolutionary into a revolutionary mindset. That is our goal. And if you are enjoying this conversation, if you'd be so inclined, please consider going over to patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. And we do have a slew of super chats that we must get to. I'm Rand Hanji 4553. Thank you very much for becoming a YouTube member. We really appreciate you being here. Mammoth Real Estate, thank you for becoming a YouTube member. I think I might know that person.
You
really
do?
It should be. Yes, I do. Jim Talib, thank you for the $5 super
Thanks,
sticker.
Jim.
Very appreciated.
You guys know I don't never eat, but I have not eaten regular food. I've been driving all day.
Yeah, imagine the shit you'd be giving me right now if I was
You
doing
know what, though? I waited till the guests left, and I have never done this, and I'm so hungry.
Of course it's pizza.
I'm in a hotel room. What do you want from me?
Well, just tell me it's at least decent pizza.
No, it's not.
All right. Well, it'll pass.
I'm
Gezin 82 with the $5. 1967 is when Israel went nuclear. That arrogance was behind the 67 war. Again, do not forget to mark your calendars. We already have the stream set up, ladies and gentlemen, for Wednesday, our pre-Thanksgiving special live stream. Phil Turney, survivor and Navy member of the USS Liberty, will join us that evening. So you're definitely going to want to be here before you start stuffing the turkey. Uncommon Magic 3301 with the $5. As an agnostic, for such a Bible lover, it's interesting. Huckabee et al. Never fanatically quotes 1 Thessalonians 2:15. It's against his religion. But again, as I've said, he is a Schofield Bible thumper, which means he's a blasphemous Bible thumper. ATHF Sheikh Zula gifting 1 Revolutionary Change membership. Thank you very much. Why the long face?
Why rat-faced Mickey?
That's probably
because Disney is a rat face.
Well, that's a whole other story. Duly noted 2427 with the $10. A big difference between the U.S. and China that doesn't get enough emphasis is the U.S. is led by the insane idea of peace through strength, and China has proven the opposite true: strength through peace. I would agree. What China is doing, again, it's not like China has to do much. They're just letting us hang ourselves economically and politically, and they're benefiting as a result. Anthony, great to see you, my friend. Anthony Aguilar checking in with the $4.99. You don't need fair weather friends.
No, I don't. I've got new friends like you now.
Yeah, what's happening in Gaza is wrong, and that's the understatement of a lifetime.
And just so you know, Anthony, and I'm going to say this because I see Rachel getting all randy in the chat. Yeah, she calls you boo. Anthony, I'm just telling you, Rachel calls you boo.
Shaita Don with the $4.99. Always great to see you. My philosophy is those who do not recognize the human rights of all people are not entitled to human rights themselves. A simple, novel, and accurate concept. Murdog 1971 with the $4.99. Thank you very much. Spot on. You guys are the thread that keeps hope alive, all alive on this platform, from the river to the sea.
So Murdog's 1971, if it was 71 was a great year, wasn't it? Yeah.
I wouldn't know. I wasn't here.
It was my birth year, and I'm assuming that's what Murdog. If you're another fellow 71er, I'm happy to meet you.
By the way, guys, Jen and I are both Tauruses, if you can't tell. And Anthony wants to know for the $1.99, when are you two going to DC with me?
Okay. two things. One, less cold there. Okay, that's just going to be the thing. And two, I really am in the process of relocating and trying to get settled. Like literally, I'm in a hotel room. I need to get myself situated somewhere before I really feel like I can leave. And that's what I'm working on. But I definitely want to come. Maybe springtime. Springtime. I want to see the cherry blossoms.
One thing I will say about DC in the winter, because of its proximity to the Potomac, it does get very cold in DC in the winter. I can handle it, but it gets in the 20s.
Like I can't. I've lived Chicago. Okay, I've lived Indianapolis. I can handle cold. I just would rather not.
Okay. Anyway, you see the abuse I have to deal with on the regular, guys. It is what it is. But the DC does get very cold in the teens and the 20s on the regular in the winter. So that's what you can expect. While you're distracted by that wonderful photograph, Hala Hamid, thank you so much for the $9.99. We really appreciate your support. If you guys are so inclined, patreon.com/revolutionary change. Thank you all. We appreciate you all. Sara Hurwitz, for some ungodly reason, doesn't want to give up on this idea that her shit-lib elitist attitude about the state of Israel is wrong. In fact, she's convinced that we're all nuts, and she's right. What a novel concept, though. Talk about being in a demented existence. Well, she's got a couple of doozies that she wants to share with us. So here we go.
October 7th happens, and I'm texting with them. I'm like, do you still want me to come? Like, what should I do? And we decided the tour would go on. And so it wasn't a response to October 7th. It was really planned beforehand, but it became a response to October 7th. And it was, I came straight from like 1997 to 2023, and the shock that I felt. On so many, we're very distracted by these big encampments and protests, which are terrible, of course. But I'm much more worried about the pervasive, systemic atmosphere on these campuses, like the air kids breathe.
Yeah.
In a lot of campuses, Israel is in the same moral bucket as the KKK and the Nazis, right? So if I said to you, Jonah, look, I'm a Nazi, sure, but I'm a liberal Nazi. That's insane, right? Or, I'm in the KKK, but I don't hate minorities. Like, that's monstrous. Like, come on, we're not going to have...
Does anyone see the irony? So you're a Zionist, but you're not a white supremacist? Oh, come on.
It's okay when the Jews do it, Jen. Don't you understand?
I feel like this girl needs to meet Cheryl, and they need to find a place to hide together.
Well, I told you the two of them could be sisters like they are.
They could. I know. And it's again, I don't want to hate on Cheryl, but this is pretty bad.
Well, that's because, again, you grew up with Cheryl. Cheryl became one of the most successful women in the world, and she acts like she's a victim.
Well, so look at this psycho. Look at this psychotic woman. And fuck Jonah Platt. Whatever.
And you want to know why anti-Jewish hatred is ramping up at such a fever pitch in this country? Exhibit A, guys.
A conversation about that. And that's what I think a lot of students on campus hear when a Jewish student says, well, look, I'm a Zionist. I'm a liberal Zionist. I care about Palestinian rights. It's like Israel is now so evil, so untouchable that there's no point of contact you can have with it, just like there's no point of contact you can have with the KKK or Nazis. And once you're in that level of irrationality, there's no conversation to be had. So many Jewish students told me they tried to meet with their classmates who were harassing them and like have a conversation.
Liar. She's lying.
How were they harassing them?
I have still not heard first-person testimony by Jewish students with a credible account of being threatened, harassed, or made to feel unsafe. Not one. It's always people like her saying what other people said.
Oh, again, it's like when they started the campus protests at Columbia University, and then you had that woman who was Hasbro and was being paid by the Mossad, intentionally walked into somebody who had a Palestinian flag. Oh, they hit me. When you live in a bubble, you pierce that bubble ever so slightly, and these people have a heart attack. Sara Hurwitz wouldn't know what the hell to do if she was actually confronted in any type of a serious way. She'd be convulsing.
This is a woman who has never faced a true threat or any lack of stability for a day in her life. Not ever. Not ever. So it's very telling. It's disgusting, but it's telling.
And they would be told, no, 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 that would be normalizing Zionists. I just thought, like, the extremity of this. And it's so confusing for these poor college kids because their anti-Semitism education has been Holocaust education.
Right.
So they get to campus, they're like, well, there are no Nazis here, but I feel really unsafe. And so I'm going to gaslight myself and say, well, maybe it's anti-Zionism, not anti-Semitism. And I have to walk them through, like, okay, if a classmate of yours, I was like, can I walk through your campus with a t-shirt that says, I love Israel? And they're like, oh God, no. I'm like, okay, what if a Black student came to you and said, my campus is great for Black students, but I can't wear my Black Lives Matter t-shirt, I'd get harassed. And the student's like, oh, that's racism, that's terrible. Great. Gay student says, my campus great for queer students, but if I wear my Pride t-shirt, I will be harassed. Like, it's not great. That's homophobia.
Right.
So I was like, so how come if you wear your Israel t-shirt and you get harassed, you don't think that's anti-Semitism?
Because you dumb cunt. Okay. I'm like, I cannot. You keep making me deal with these people, and I cannot deal with these people. Okay. The difference, you stupid bitch, is that gay people and Black people are who they are. Supporters of Israel are choosing to be Nazi pieces of shit. So yeah, that is not a good comparison at all. You are straw manning shit and you know it. You know it. So it's infuriating.
The one big difference between a successful liberal and a successful conservative that I have noticed forever, the level of condescension in their critique, in their disposition on almost every topic is elite, over the top condescension.
Oh, yeah.
Period.
Oh, yeah.
There's a reason why there is a distinct difference between liberals with money and conservatives with money. Now, not all of them are the same. You still have the super rich who end up at places like Mar-a-Lago, but for the most part, there is a distinct difference in terms of how they talk. This woman loves to hear herself talk, loves it, and truly believes that she is affluent, not just economically, but socially, and obviously religiously. And that's why she acts this way. The oblivious nature to her attitude is actually mind-blowing. Everyone else is bad except us. We're the true oppressed people as I talk to you from this fancy podcast studio in New York City. It's easy to see why they are so hated.
This bitch.
And they're like, no, but the problem, it's not Jews, it's Israel. I'm like,
it is.
Okay, what if your Chinese American classmate wore a t-shirt that says, I love China? Even if your classmates knew what a terrible human rights violator China is, I'm guessing they would think, well, okay, I'm sure she doesn't love the Chinese government. She's probably just passionate about her heritage, or maybe she's studying Chinese history or language. I think your classmates would give her the benefit of the doubt.
Right.
And that is not something that happens for Jewish students. And
yeah, it happens for Jewish students. It doesn't happen for Zionists because Israel is not a real thing. That's not a real culture. It's not a real people. It's not a real heritage. Whereas China, again, you're apples and oranges, lady. China is a 4,000 plus year old civilization and culture of people that have strong genetic ties to their land and their history and their culture. Israel is a make-believe place like Disney World. So no, it is not the same thing. I want to punch her. I am so angry.
You can punch her because I can't. And
I can't punch her. Let me tell you something. If I'm going to get arrested, it's not going to be for hurting this dumb cunt.
No, but it would be fun. and funny.
Maybe.
And it's Dara Horn, who's one of my best friends and an amazing Jewish author. She talks about the difference between Purim anti-Semitism, which is like, you're a Jew, you're bad, I'm going to kill you. There is nothing you can do to be good. You can't convert, you're bad, I'm killing you. Whereas there's another kind of anti-Semitism, which is like, you're a Jew, you're bad, but there is something you can do to be okay. You can give up whatever it is that I, the majority, think is disgusting about Judaism. And so back in the day, you know, if you were a Jew converted to Christianity, they wouldn't kill you. For some time at least.
Yes, I have.
For a while, maybe.
If
you got lucky. You know, you could convert. And today,
the victim mindset of these people it's vomit inducing. These are people that are extremely successful. This woman was one of Obama's primary speechwriters, for God's sake.
Right.
And she acts like the SS are around the corner coming to get her.
Sarah, go to your bunker, find your safe space. Okay.
And stay there.
Everything you're saying about, and stay there. And everything you're saying, and like, here's the thing. It's all such hearsay. It's all hearsay. I have not yet heard first-person credible testimony regarding any feelings of being threatened. Not once in the past over 2 years of people like her saying this stupid bullshit. I just go merge with PragerU and be done with it.
Seriously, we'll finish it up.
I think I think about my parents' generation, the 50s. If you were a Jew and, just get rid of your last name, your nose,
right,
your Jewy gestures, right? Be less Jew.
You did get rid of your nose, you stupid hypocrite.
And then you're safe. Today, it's, get rid of your Zionism and then you're safe. And so you see these poor kids who are like, they're like, my rabbi growing up told me Israel was great. And then I got to campus and I learned they were genocidal, colonial Nazis. I saw the light. I had an epiphany. And then I took anti-Zionism and anti-colonialism into my heart and now I'm saved. And their classmates are like, now you're saved. You're a Jew who's seen the light. And it's
Yes, that's exactly how that works. I could not have said it better. Sarah. Go hide in a bunker. Go away.
Now you know why. You know what? Now I understand why Jews only want other Jews to commingle and marry and all that shit. Because who in the fuck would want to put up with this shit? If you believe in this stuff.
It's just
oh my God.
It's so unbelievably supremacist and entitled. And what's so sad is that I unfortunately know a lot of people that are that. Another reason, yet people, yes, I have got to move out of Florida. I cannot be around those people anymore.
That woman that you just saw on screen, ladies and gentlemen, that is the quintessential Debbie Wasserman Schultz voter. That's her.
Oh, yeah.
That is who she is. That's a woman that Sara Hurwitz is the type of woman who, if she lived in South Florida, she would either be in Plantation, Cooper City, or Weston. Guaranteed. She
could easily be in Emerald Hills and sending her kid to university school or Heritage because she wouldn't dare send them to public school in that area.
But she comes off as like a stuffy gated community type.
No, I'm telling you, I know her people. I know where her people live.
Now, I want you to all understand that there is a second component to this. There is a layer that is now happening because we are seeing that the talking points are not working. Now, Jen is not familiar with this person, and neither was I. But the lady's name is Melanie Phillips. She is a Jewish Zionist activist at Shiratz Hayden's Rage Against the Hate conference. Now, I bring this up because it is very important to distinguish the difference that we are noticing with people who are still trying to cling on to the Democratic Party, and they're going to say that we're not going to take money from AIPAC anymore. AIPAC is one of dozens of these pro-Israel NGOs that are out there that are going to continue to facilitate the pro-Zionist state, or at least for now. But it's changing. Here is the lunacy taken to a whole other level. You thought the language of Sara Hurwitz is bad? This is even worse.
Been
made to believe that peace and justice in the Middle East hinge on the Palestinians getting a state of their own. Justice for the Palestinians has been deemed to be the issue that drives all before it. By apparently denying that happy outcome, the state of Israel has come to be perceived as the enemy of humanity itself. This is the big lie that we are all up against. But the Jewish world has never identified this big lie as such and has...
Here we go again. You're muted again, Jen.
I'm sorry. But we had Michael Rechtenwald on a month or so ago. We have spoken with them, and yes, we are supportive of what they are doing.
So what this Mrs. Phillips is suggesting is in a much more coded neoliberal language compared to a neocon Mike Huckabee language to effectively say Palestine is not a thing. Stop suggesting it's a thing. You're just anti-Jew, you're anti-Semite, whatever,
right.
Whatever. And this woman is native to Israel, by the way.
Has never fought it. It has never told the world the truth. There is no such thing as Palestine. There is...
Fuck you and the horse you rode in on, you horse-faced bitch.
But you see, no, she's a bird face. But the thing is that, you know, every accusation is a confession. So what is not a real existing thing is Israel. Israeli is not a nationality. It's not a culture. It's not a people. It's not anything. It is a make-believe fiction that is in Palestine. And you can keep saying it the other way over and over and over again, and it still won't make it be true.
No such thing as the Palestinian people. The Jewish world has never told the rest of the world that the indigenous people of the land of so-called Palestine are the Jews, that the Jews are the only people who have any entitlement to any of this land, an entitlement based in law, in history and morality, and they are the only people who have an entitlement to all of it.
Oh, all of it? Have you been? All of it?
Been?
Have you been? They're entitled to all of it. They're the only people that have a history there. That's so interesting, but yet genetically it's so untrue because the Palestinians are the true Israelites / Canaanites / Hebrews, and everyone knows that now. So I don't understand. Like, who is listening? Who is she speaking to that would even buy this?
This is for those. Well, this is why I keep telling you guys, and this is why, if you've noticed lately, we're trying to show you with the clips we're producing that it's so much more than AIPAC. AIPAC is without question probably the most recognizable pro-Israel NGO in the United States, but so is the ADL. And there are so many more of these organizations that people are not aware of. This one in particular is the Rage Against the Hate Conference.
It's more like rally up the hate, you crazy, psychotic, anti-Muslim bitch. Like these people.
But
and they stand there and they say these ridiculous things that are so absurd to them, and yet it's completely true, but about them. So
projection.
Oh, it's just so you can't make this shit up, man.
But you have to understand that when you are a Brit, you are allowed to get away with much more incendiary language because it sounds much more sophisticated and intelligent. And you can't fault me for feeling this way. I don't want to have to kill all the Palestinians, but they're rubbish and inexcusable animals. So we must deal with them as we once dealt with the French and other countries like India. That's the point.
But the world sees it now, and the world is done with the colonial bullshit. Africa's done with it. South America's done with it. We're done with it. We're done with it. It's just not working anymore.
And you want to know why we have to keep pointing this out? This is why we have to keep pointing this out.
למות מרעב. כי מה שעושים עכשיו העזתים לחטופים, אני לא מרחם על מי שבעוד כמה שנים יגדל ולא ירחם עלינו.
Again,
Right.
nice projection. Nice projection. Yeah.
You're right. We will not have any mercy for you.
No, we won't, but the Palestinians will. See, here's the thing, that this is what people like this don't get, because they're so like bigoted and just so stuck in their thing. Palestinians in general are some of the least vengeful people that I've ever met. Like, I cannot tell you the amount of people that I've met who have shown more grace in their approach and their understanding of what's going on than I ever would have. So what he's saying, while I don't think it's true about just Palestinians in general, it is true about the rest of us. Yeah, we're watching this and we're becoming more and more violent from watching it, and we are going to rise up and take you out.
Amen.
רק מטומטם ערב רב, שונא ישראל, מרחם על המחבלים הבאים, למרות שהיום הם קטנים, והלוואי רעבים. מי ייתן ימותו מרעב. ולמי שיש בעיה מה שאמרתי, זה בעיה שלו.
Starved to death.
And again, Palestinians are not a monolith, and I don't like put them in any sainted category. I know that there are many people that have over decades joined resistance groups, Hamas, because of being oppressed. So no, I think people do rise up to try to get a boot off their neck, and they have every right to do so. But I just in general don't find Palestinians to be vengeful and act or think or believe in the way that they are deemed to be by the Zio state, like what he said. Like, oh, they'll do that to us. No, you sick fuck. And it's the same concept here that it was with whites and ending slavery and whites and ending segregation is, well, if we give them rights, they're going to treat us bad. No, you sick fucks. Like, that's not how this works, but it's very telling that that's what people think.
Hopefully not for much longer. Hopefully you all have enjoyed this conversation this evening. And for the final time, please go over to patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month. You can become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel. We have just a few more super chats to get to before we're out for the evening. Marvin Vargas with the $1.99. Please have Steve, Jana Bunin, Israel News Live.
Steve and Jana. Steve
well, I don't. Jana. Steve and Jana.
No, it just says Steve and Jana Benoon.
Benoon, Israel News Live, ex-Zios. Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
Rachel, take a note.
Yeah. Take a note, please. Pen and paper.
She does. She writes everything in a little notebook.
Anthony, thank you again for the $4.99. We'll go in the spring, see members of Congress. We'll call in the Cherry Blossom with Revolutionary Change Live.
We'll call it. He means it, the Cherry Blossom with Revolutionary Change. Yes. I've been wanting to see the cherry blossoms forever. And the problem is that because I know that there's no climate issue, nothing to see here, the seasons are not what they used to be. So things happen in different ways than they should. But I definitely am I will come play in DC in the spring.
Yeah, you heard it here, folks. So anybody thinking about assassinating either Jen or I or both,
Thank you. That's where we'll be. I'll forward you guys my itinerary later.
J Blue 705, thank you for the $2.99 super sticker and that absolutely adorable profile picture. Tony wants to keep giving us money. Thank you for the $9.99. We can go. Oh, he did it twice. Oh, I don't know if he was like intending to do it that way, but
Tony, stop it. All right. I don't want to have problems with his wife. I haven't met the wife. I don't see the wife, but she probably doesn't want you giving away all your money to us. So
we can go in the spring, visit Congress, do a live show in front of the Capitol, which actually would be interesting if we did something like that. We'll call it the Cherry Blossom Revolution, live in DC with Revolutionary Change. A novel idea and an idea that I can get behind. Sam F. 137 with the $5. We appreciate your hard work. Plant an olive tree. Yeah. Duly noted. 2427. Thank you again for the $2. Greater Israel or the Samson option? It's extortion. Yes, it is. I think that's Chicago in the background. It looks like.
Oh, now I'm happy. Okay, because now I know that Mrs. Aguilar likes me, And that actually feels good, because I feel like, yes, because, you know, this is a whole new world for them. Like, this is a sort of a new and it's very nice that she's been so generous about sharing her man with all of us, because his time is very valuable. And I do appreciate that.
Amen. Shai Tadan with the $4.99 again. Thank you very, very much. As a Palestinian, I can attest that my people are unfortunately soft as F. Well, look, it's...
I disagree, man. And I know that you're those people. I'm not like a white-splaining situation, but it's like, to say that people are soft when what they've endured and been through and yet have pride and dignity and resilience, it's a level of courage and grace and strength that white Western people of this generation can't fathom, can't even remotely fathom. So I understand what you're saying from one perspective, but I would suggest maybe there's different types of strength.
Concur. We want to thank you all for being with us this evening. We will not be live on Thanksgiving. We will be live on Thanksgiving Eve. So make sure you tune in this Wednesday. Somebody that I know Anthony is definitely going to tune in for.
And I have a little treat since it's Thanksgiving week. So we're going to have a preview. And again, you know, I did a graphic, so I showed it to you. So guys, this is what I did for Thanksgiving for, you know, the Gobble Week.
No, that's really terrible. How could you do such a terrible thing? You know, you really are you are a terrible person. My neck doesn't look anything like that. I did not request Time Magazine to remove that picture. It doesn't. No, it's just, listen, it was a terrible angle. You really, really terrible person. Really terrible. Quiet, Piggy.
That's what it is. That's what he would say. He'd call me Piggy.
You're right.
You know what? Here's the thing. We need to just all start calling him Turkey.
What's up, Turkey Neck? That's a really terrible thing to say. Don't say such a thing. So on Thanksgiving Eve, we will be live with one of the few remaining surviving members of the USS Liberty. Phil Turney will be here, and it's going to be a very interesting conversation. I am sure he will have a lot to say. This has been a long time coming. We've wanted to have this conversation for a while. So with that said, smash that like button, share, subscribe, do all those things that we ask you to do. We appreciate you all. We love you all. We will see you Wednesday, and
Free Palestine.
Good night, guys.